you want to do this strategy, you better get friendly with your commercial broker and the banks. You'll need them. Okay, they're your best friend, and I absolutely welcome the opportunity to give them healthy returns, because they are a key enabler. So, your strategy. There are many different strategies, and I'm not promoting this above any one, just saying there are different. Okay, what I would say is buy-to-lets, rent-to-rent, service accommodation, as we work up, the risk increases, the returns increase, the time required for them increases, and the expertise increases. Now the good news for all of us, and certainly for us, we put this into play every day of every week, is each one of those, it doesn't have to be us that's bearing the risk. Hopefully it's us that's bearing the lion's share of the returns. It doesn't have to be us that's putting the time in. We don't want a huge overhead. You know, I came out of corporate world, I've seen how businesses have large overheads and what that can do to organisations. It can allow them, it can make them take the wrong decisions, to take on the wrong contract, because actually they want the gross profits there to fuel the overhead, to keep them going in the lean times before the good times return. So an overhead has the opportunity to, or the risk and peril of turning into something that you never intended to be. So just think carefully where you put your investment and how you can outsource. The biggest leverage for us in this world of large developments and commercial conversions is commercial funding, without a shadow of a doubt. Okay, that makes us accelerate our strategy and is our core enabler. However, matched with that is a requirement for substantial swathes of private capital, not equity. Don't use the word equity. It's private capital. It has a different resonance, different context, and certainly when you're looking at shareholder agreements, a different binding structure that you need to be aware of, and you need to have the right circle around you to advise you on these. My biggest KPI, key performance indicator, return on time invested or return on time employed. Okay, that to me is the biggest element, and I can create the maximum amount of leverage here by working with design teams, working with main contractors, offsetting certain risk and managing the professionals who, let's face it, are going to be far better at doing, they've been doing it a lifetime, far better at doing that than I could. So we're going to go through each one of these, just one or two slides on each one, and hopefully we'll touch on it. It will give you a flavour. For those that are doing it, you might learn something. Those that haven't, maybe a bit of stimulus for thought, because I believe every one of you can access this strategy should you wish, should you have the heart and courage to do this. So I call this forcing appreciation. Okay, it's driving value, forcing that appreciation in many ways. So we can do that by obviously securing the property at the right price. What is the right price for a building?
Depends on the GDV.
Sorry?
Depends on the GDV.
Depends on the GDV? Yeah, and what defines the GDV?
For the resales for the end product.
Yeah, and probably more broadly, the strategy.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example of this. We looked at an opportunity. It's one of the very few that we looked at which was on market, and it was in Berkshire, and it was Savills had it on the market for offers over 3 million, and we looked at it, we did our due diligence on it, and we put an offer in at 4.4 million. Okay, we didn't secure that building. The successful offer was, we'll never know exactly how much, but it was about 5.65 million. Do you think they overpaid for it?
Depends.
It might have held it or something.
Depends on their strategy.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Two gentlemen at the front. Their strategy, our strategy, was to intensify permitted development and just remain on the inside envelope of the building, not change anything on the outside. Okay? Their strategy was to buy it in cash and hold out for a couple of years and try and get planning for 4 additional floors on the building. Do you think I could compete with that? No. So knowing who the other bidders are, is a really worthwhile exercise. Those of you who have been in any form of business, one of your biggest costs is a cost to tender. Tender for contracts in whatever field. And then you'll look at we used to call it the shoot to kill ratio, your success rate of bidding. Okay, you can be busy fools. So you only have a finite amount of resource for your tendering, your offer, your due diligence. Use that carefully. Put that intelligence to work by building up your own network to try and ensure you get these properties in the right way that's congruent for your strategy, not following a herd to just try and outbid each other on the open market. And I see that a lot. Sometimes people are successful, most times they're not.
How do you know what the other people are bidding?
Sorry?
How do you know what the other people are bidding?
What their bid price?
Do you know?
Very difficult. Very difficult. You might have some local intelligence, you might know them, but that's the difficult thing. Yeah, how do you screen the opportunity? And there is the part of the lottery there. The more you know your local area, the more you'll find you become familiar with familiar faces there. So look, there are various ways of forcing appreciation. Accessing the right property at the right price, your structuring of the contracts. This structuring is where we make most of our money. Hardly ever do options. It's generally conditional offers, conditionalities in the contract. A lot of planning and more permitted development. We see a lot of buildings that are about to go on the market with permitted development, but we feel we can go in there and add some additional value and intensify them further. So it might be a building that has 35 units. It's got permitted development, 35 units. We think we can restructure the layout and make 40 units. You saw that one in Colchester. It was 8 2-beds, and we turned it into 16 1-beds. In commercial speak, net internal area, gross internal area. You'll sell a building like this, you'll look at all the square meterage, or the commercial agents and surveyors will, but they won't include corridor space, lobby space, toilet spaces. But once we've knocked out all these walls, we don't care what it was. So we can make use of gross internal area, not net internal area. So it really gives us a chance to enhance the value. And we've done this for several decades now, and we've already seen how buildings are measured has changed because of the different type of office accommodation that we've spoken about. Was cellular, now it's more open plan.
Can I ask you, when you did this building in Colchester, instead of 8 or 16, it still stays in the permitted development, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. We weren't affecting the outside envelope of the building.
It's not like you need to ask for planning permission.
No, didn't go into planning, all PD.
Right.
And we protect ourselves with conditionality on that. Is permitted development 100% certain?
No.
No, it's not. It's close, but it's not.
So you did it subject to getting 16 units?
Yep. Absolutely. So then you can add value by actually going ahead and doing the development, new homes premium, and then splitting some of the elements. The important thing here is, look where this line strikes. We've added all that value generally before we've acquired the site. Okay, and I'm talking about legal completion. So if I can do that all before legal completion, is there a fair chance that the banks will fund that uplift, that forced appreciation? Say yes, Mark. Yeah, they will. they really will. So we're trying to all the time decrease the risk and increase those profits. That's what forcing appreciation is, and that's why we make our money at this end on how we approach that negotiation. And what is the most useful tool we use for negotiation? Ears. Listen. I see so many people just leading with the mouth. Learn to ask open questions, the right type of open questions. Okay, the moment somebody asks you a question, you're on the back foot. Okay, ask open questions and really listen, not to what somebody's saying, but what they need, what they experience, what their frustrations are. You'll learn a lot of human character. So we need secure entry, and we generally get this by commercial agents. I would say 90% of everything we secure is with commercial agents. You can take a lifetime to build those relationships, and I suggest you start now if you have every intention of doing so. Okay, it takes a long time to build up. Please be patient. Don't try and get a commercial opportunity by Christmas. You may well achieve that. Chances are you probably won't. Might take you a little bit longer, might take you till Easter, might take you till the summer. But once you've secured one on the right terms, at the right level, and it's the right funding structure, potentially it could be a life-changing opportunity. The terms that you make that offer on have to be highly professional. How should we approach a commercial agent? Should we keep our plans highly confidential so that people don't take the opportunity away from us? You know, our intentions are leaked out on the market. Would that be a sensible strategy, or should we open and spill the beans and tell them most things? What does your instinct say?
I tell them what I expected, what the GDV is, and then you can realistically tell them what the land value is based on what you expect to get out of it. So, and if you come to him and say, I want to build 12 units and it seems reasonable, it's not yet building a 100-unit tower block, he thinks, okay, this is achievable, it's something I can convince the owner to go with.
And as you're talking, you're demonstrating your credibility.
Yes.
Nobody wants to hear, I'm great, this is what I've done. But if you can talk through your intentions, your experience, your professionalism will become very clear very quickly. We always explain to our agents, to the vendors, exactly what our intentions are. What's the one thing we're generally always putting in our offers? Conditionality. So if my conditionality is I want to put a helipad on the roof and a big pool in the back garden, does that probably represent quite a high risk in planning? Mm-hmm. So it's in my interest to explain to the agent, so at least he's got a fighting chance, he or she's got a fighting chance to go back to the vendor and explain to the vendor that actually this team here, this business, great credibility, we've done work with them previously, their conditionality on the face of it is very reasonable. I'd put that as a relatively low risk. Okay, what a commercial agent has, he's got a fixed overhead and a variable income. Always walk a mile in another person's shoes is the best piece of negotiating advice you can ever have in life. Previous MD of mine 22 years ago gave me that bit of advice, and it's served me well over many decades. Okay, walk a mile in another person's shoes. And you can do that with the agent. The agent will only back your bid if he or she believes that you have every opportunity of completing. Because if you don't, you'll jilt them at the altar and they've got to come all the way back down the aisle and start the marketing process all over again.
If they don't get dumped by the owner.
If they don't get dumped by the owner, yeah, exactly. They might not even get the second chance at it.
But sometimes when you tell the vendor what your plans are, they say, oh, okay, I'll go and do it myself.
Some do.
Get the planning permission myself.
Do you know what? If the vendor's got the wish to do that, I'd rather he told me in the first conversation than after I've spent due diligence time. Yeah. So sometimes you're kind of flushing out. And actually, the biggest choice that we have, or the biggest privilege I have now, moving out of corporate life, is I've got the choice to work with people actually I want to work with. You know, somebody might have the greatest building in the world, but if they're a complete lunatic and I really don't respect them, I'm probably not that interested, to be honest. You know, you decide where your values are, but you know, that choice to pull out on a point of principle maybe is not the most sound business principle, but it's an option that you always have. And the agents will respect you because they're in it for the long term. Proof of funding. How many times do we get asked for proof of funding? For us, very rarely now. Very rarely. Okay. Initially, you probably will get asked quite a bit. So think about how you might structure that, how you might look at proof of funds, how you might structure your offer letter. But it's not as essential as you otherwise might think. Always think about tax. It's a difference between working hard and working smart. Okay, we'll cover tax a little later on. But what does commercial property attract? VAT, yeah. Does anybody know the disapply form? Okay, so there's an HMRC form called the 1614D, which is a good friend of ours. We use that quite a lot. Okay, your offer should be conditional on a vendor signing a 1614D. It's going to spoil your day if you put an offer in at £1 million and you end up having to pay 20% VAT on it. I'd suggest you want to avoid that. So having a chat with an accountant, and bless them, they might want to charge you a few £100 for the advice. Take it, because it's a lot cheaper than paying VAT on a commercial property. But when you apply that 1614D disapply, you potentially will save yourself a substantial amount of money. That is when a building goes from commercial use into a residential use. What can you have? Commercial to a mixed use? So if your intentions are, I'll show you some later on. Look out for them when they come up. I'll try and remember to point them out. But you might have a shop with uppers. Might all be classed as A1 or A2 or something. So there could be very different types of complications, and there can be serious implications there. And you also need to understand some of the vendor's history as well. So there's quite a little bit of work to do there. So you need a professional team. Has anybody heard of capital allowances?
Yeah.
Okay. On a buy, develop, sell strategy, how can you use capital allowances? With great difficulty. Okay. But a buy, develop, hold strategy has a bountiful set of opportunities there. So again, your strategy, your structure, how you position it, whether you position it in a limited company or an LLP, will have a profound difference. How much capital allowances can you claim if you've bought a property in trust? 0.
Why?
It's not allowed. A trust is a highly tax efficient vehicle in the first place, so you can't claim it. But what you can do is you can see the opportunities. You can use that and say, well, who owns property that's in a trust? So we've bought a property which is owned by a charity. What is a charity generally owned as? Trust. So do you think they will have ever claimed capital allowances? So the chances are there's capital allowances unclaimed on that building. Same with local authorities. Local authorities can't claim capital allowances. Capital allowances generally hold, local authorities tend to own properties for a very long period of time, would you say? Mm-hmm. So chances are if they're selling stock, it's probably very rich in capital allowance potential. Always make your offers assignable. Okay? What can happen halfway through? Can something go wrong halfway through? Yeah, before you complete? If something changes, could be personal circumstances, what can you do if you've got if you're exchanged on a property? How can you get rid of it?
Flip it.
Sorry?
Flip it.
Flip it, yeah, in auction or whatever route, but not if you're contracted to buy it. You would have to go and seek the vendor's permission. So you want assignability of contract, because if it all goes to hell in a handcart, you can actually invoke the assignability clause, and then another party can step into your shoes. Okay, so due diligence. Has anybody ever seen a deal analyzer that looks like that? Okay, you're getting the impression it's quite hard to do, but it's something you can all learn how to do. Okay, look out for the common errors. Okay, if you get it right, it's not too difficult. It can be too basic. Okay, you can take each element in isolation and there's no sensitivity analysis. If you take two elements that could shift in opposite directions, your build cost could go up and your GDV could come down. That's not a good day, is it?